everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen, and we've talked in the past about Goldman Sachs warnings. Actually, in February they warned of a huge crisis. Now, this article from Zero Hedge says, the outlook is not good. Goldman sees U.S. in dire straits as deficit hits $2 trillion in 10 years. And as the article kind of goes into, 3 months ago, Goldman, first among the big banks, warned that the U.S. fiscal trajectory was dire, warning that U.S. fiscal policy is on an unusual course, with the budget deficit expected to widen over the next few years as a result of prior imbalances and recently enacted policies, namely Trump's dramatic fiscal stimulus, which should lead to a federal debt to GDP ratio of around 85% of GDP by 2021. And they at the time said this, and I quote, "We project that if Congress continues to extend existing policies, including the recent enacted tax and spending legislation, federal debt will slightly exceed 100% of GDP and interest expense will rise to around 3.5% of GDP, putting the U.S. in a worse fiscal position than the experience of the 1940s or the 1990s. Now, the most recent warning, fast forward to today, when 3 months after its original dire assessment, Goldman doubles down and in a note assessing what's the worst that could happen with the U.S. budget deficit, writes that the U.S. fiscal outlook is not good. And among other things, predicts that the U.S. fiscal deficit will double from $1 trillion over the next 12 months to $2 trillion by 2028, per a near record 7% of GDP. And I quote, "We project the federal deficit will increase from $825 billion, 4.1% of GDP, to $1.250 billion, 5.5% of GDP by 2021. By 2028, we expect it to rise to $2.05 trillion, 7% of GDP in our baseline scenario, which assumes that expiring tax provisions will be extended and that discretionary spending, which was recently increased, will increase only slightly further in nominal terms." So obviously this is getting over the top insane. We've talked about this for a long time, John. When it comes to the deficit, I mean, $2 trillion. I mean, what do you think about this?
Well, I think we're going to look at even more, with especially the unfunded liabilities, the official unfunded liabilities, which is the pensions, the Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all those programs that they promised people that they actually don't have that money from any tax income. So that's the big problem. That's the official number is $113 trillion. $113 trillion. And then, of course, you're looking at, that's a liability of $932,000 per taxpayer. Like, how are we gonna, the average taxpayer is not even close to 932 be able to pay that in taxes. So just the trajectory where they're going, and then of course the increased spending that they're on, the massive spending binge. You're cutting taxes, but you're also increasing government at the same time. That's stupidity. Like, what you have to do is you got to cut both the government and the taxes at the same time.
Let the free market flourish and let individuals decide with the demand of their dollar, which is something that we obviously don't see anymore. We have this corporate fascism government and socialist policies, comes full circle in the scale of collectivism. But it's really important that we talk about, how terrible that fiat empire is getting, where it's not just the United States, it's all around the world, but all fiat currencies eventually revert to their true value of zero. They always have, they always will, going back to 1024 AD. And the United States, the US fiat system is like the only one that hasn't really crashed, the world reserve system. And I mean, it's only a matter of time. It just keeps getting propped up more and more and more, so that it comes down heavier and heavier, all while government is spending insane amounts of money. As you mentioned, they lower taxes. Obviously, taxation is theft, and we need to do away with involuntary taxation systems. But at the same time, to raise spending at the exact same time, like the $1 trillion bill that we saw not that long ago from Trump, these massive entanglements in foreign affairs that cost insane amounts of money, these infrastructure plans which don't even make sense. I mean, it just goes on and on. The government, I think Ringo Starr said it best, whatever the government touches turns to, well, you know what I'm going to say. So, John, what do you think this is going to turn into, though, like in the coming couple years? I know it's really hard to predict exact specifics, but what do you think this is going to turn into?
Well, it has to turn into a debt crisis, which it already really is. They're spending so much money, and now, of course, with the rising interest rates on their bonds that they promised to pay everybody, you're looking at the 30-year treasury is 3.21% now. So you're getting really high on that as well. And then, of course, what's interesting is just the US 20-year and 30-year yield curve has actually twisted too. So it's predicting something like it's really starting to like invert. And that's a big thing. It's predicting something huge happening again in the United States. And of course, we got the auto-backed loan securities. We got the collateralized loan obligations for businesses and so on. So there's a huge amount of debt that is stacked up in the United States as of current. And then it's not just the United States, it's everywhere. Look at Canada. Canada's, almost 3-4 times worse than that. So we really have put ourselves in a place where these Keynesian morons thinks that, we just print ourselves out of, debt. Well, the problem is that currency that you print, well, that's going to be less and less worth, and then suddenly the population is going to say, I'm not going to take that garbage currency anymore. I'm going to just use it as to keep myself warm, because that's all that it's worth. And that's where we're heading towards in the United States. People can say all they want that, that's it's different this time, or the United States, we can just attack everybody around the world. We're all safe. We're a huge empire. Yeah, the Roman Empire was a huge empire too, and felt they were safe. They thought were very cocky. They had control over everything, and of course they had so much corruption in the government at the end as well. So it's just the same kind of thing that happens in any big empire over time. You just destroy currency, then you destroy society with it, and you're just seeing deterioration in certain, especially the big cities. One thing that I want to mention is the biggest government-run cities in the United States are the ones that have the highest inflation, where it takes a lot. I was looking at an article where it was saying how much it took in an income in order for you to buy a 2-bedroom apartment. And it was insane. Of course, California, Seattle, DC, all these centralized hubs, that's where it was expensive, where the government is big. So where are we not getting this? That, government is the problem, and it's just gonna continue to increase the standard, lower the standard of living, as it's gonna cost more.
The whole purpose of government is the subservience of the populace. They're an organized crime racket after all, and that's what they depend on our dependence. So that is why it comes down to you, good people. It's all coming down to self-sustainability and independence, and being able to be financially responsible as well. For responsibility is a hallmark of freedom itself. So it always comes down to food, water, shelter, self-defense. You're not gathering things for the toughest guy on the block. Of course, gold, silver, cryptocurrencies that have fundamental value, but that all comes down as well to your own due diligence. Again, the responsibility factor has to play in.
Not use dollar tether.
Yeah, no, not US dollar, anything involving that or that Ponzi scheme of Tether. Anyway, so it comes down to you. I know we will continue to be reporting on all of these subjects, as we always do, as we have for many years, and as we've been unfortunately vindicated far too many times in doing so. So keep watching, and until next time, thanks for going into this with us, John. This is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. Like what you see here, WAM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so overwhelmingly demonetized and censored by YouTube, as the ADL comes in and flags all of our content as hate speech. Also, check our Bitcoin address in the description as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also find us at steemit.com at Josh Sigurdson, the future of social media, where you get paid in the upvote of your post in Steem, the cryptocurrency. And also find us at the Red Pill Expo, which we have a reference link for below in the description and the comments as well. Hosted by G. Edward Griffin, amazing speakers coming out to speak this year. Don't miss it. It's in Spokane, Washington, June 21st to 23rd. We hope to see you there. But until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.